going on, guys? My name is Nick and welcome back to Olsen Auto. Now this is what I would probably call the official last CBR600F2 ride of the season. Now it's still kind of wet out, so no absolutely hot dogging on the old sport bike today. A nice chill cruise, but I think this is gonna be the last ride. We're gonna get some snow, a couple inches tomorrow, and then this is of course uploaded a week in the future, but on Wednesday or Thursday, or Wednesday into Thursday, we're getting about 2 feet of snow, and I do have to stop and grab gas right up here. Yeah, we're getting a couple feet of snow, which pretty much makes this bike unrideable now. That is not gonna stop me from riding the DRZ whatsoever. Did I remember my wallet? Please, oh please let my wallet be in my backpack. Oh yeah. I think this bike is pretty much empty. Damn, it just took 4 gallons. This thing was totally empty. Oops. Alright. Please start, please start, please start. Oh, she's liking that fresh premium. Who am I to talk about it? I blow money every day. Now this road probably isn't the best road to be speeding violently on, but in any case, I'm not sure what story I'm going to talk about today. You guys got to give me a minute or two to think that one through, because I got plenty of life stories and I have some ideas, but I want to make sure this is a good video, so give me a minute to think that through. So today, I hate this road. So today's story is a little bit of a fun one. It's a story about riding, and this is about what I would say was probably the worst dirt bike crash of my life. Now, of course, I did have a crash where I actually broke my left foot in 3 separate places. I pretty much shattered my left foot, and that wasn't my worst crash, actually. This crash I'm talking about, all I got was a slight concussion, nothing crazy from it, but it's definitely my most violent crash, that's for sure. So this is a few years back, probably 5 years back. I'd say 3 to 5 years back, somewhere around there. And this is back when I was racing my 2003 Yamaha YZ885, little 85cc 6-speed 2-stroke. Love that bike. That thing absolutely cooked, and I raced that bike for a while. I only did 1 race on a different bike. All my other races were done on that bike, and this race was at, I want to say, Thomaston Dam over in Connecticut. And now this is an awesome track. Like, if I had to rate a track, this one's just so fun. And it was this race is called the Jack Frost Enduro. And of course it's enduro, it's not motocross, so racing through the woods, hill climbs, climbing over rock walls and whatnot, ripping some single track. So this is the Jack Frost Enduro, and when I tell you I get there, there's frost. I mean, obviously the name says so. Frost in the ground. This was in October, I want to say. It was incredibly cold. Like, when I say incredibly cold, I mean it was freezing. It was so cold that after my first lap, I actually went and grabbed the pipe of the bike, the expansion chamber, so that I could warm my hands up, and it wasn't warm. It was actually cold from it being so cold outside. So that will just put it in perspective as to how cold it is. Absolutely freezing. Probably the coldest race ever. Probably the coldest that I've ever even ridden in. And I've ridden my bobber, you know, down the road in the winter. So like I said, this was probably a half hour away from my house. Very, very, very cold race. And it's such a fun track. I mean, if it was in the summer, I would have had so much more fun. But I only completed, I was on my 3rd lap. Yeah, my 3rd lap, I would say. And now the 2nd lap, I was having a little trouble. I was getting a little bit slower. First lap, I was bombing. I was holding 2nd pretty well, and I was in 2nd place most of that lap. So I was holding 2nd place. I was super stoked because I got there and my dad was waiting. So like, they do little checkpoints, and when I had completed my first lap, my dad was like, "You're doing great. Just keep riding fast, keep going." I was like, "All right, you know, I can do that." And so I'm like really trying to hold my consistency, and on my 2nd lap, I lost it a little bit. My lap time was almost a full minute slower than before, and that bumped me down to the third place. I was like, okay, you know, I'm still gonna take a trophy. Now, this is gonna sound pretty embarrassing, but I actually never took a trophy racing. you know, I don't know if I blame that on myself physically, like, you know, not being able to ride as fast and hold consistency based on my physical health, or if that was my mental health. And oh, little K-truck, right-hand drive too, that's dope. But I don't know if I blame me never taking a trophy on my physical health, because I was never like the epitome of health, and I'm really working on that over the winter so that I can actually be sure that's not what's limiting me as far as riding is concerned. But I'm not sure if it was my mental health and me just constantly scaring myself, not being sure of my abilities. I would say probably a mixture of both if we're being realistic. Me being too scared to go fast, not knowing where my limits are. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's why, but that, you know, I never took a trophy and I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with that, but you know, looking at it in the past, I learned so much about riding in those few years of racing, and after taking a 3-year break, it'll be 4 years by the time I start racing again. It's like I feel like I'm ready for it. Maybe not physically, pizza, but I am mentally ready to start racing again, that is for sure. I know where my limits are, and of course I still need to get more seat time on my new KTM before I'm like super comfortable. So yeah, anyway, that's why I've never taken a trophy. But back to the story at hand here. So I'm racing, and second lap I get a little bit slower, and now comes up the third lap, and this was probably single-handedly the most inconsistent and terrible lap I've ever run in any race. And when I talk about the next, it'll probably be a car vlog at that point, but when I talk about my next story on a bike or a car, and I'm talking about when I actually broke my first bone ever, you guys will hear what consistency should be like and what just kind of a fluke is when you're racing. But so basically, third lap starts going terribly. I lay it down a good few times, and when I say a good few times, I mean probably 5 or 6 times. I was doing terribly. I was cold, I was fat, I was tired. I just wasn't having a very good time at all. Basically, I wasn't doing too good. I laid it down a lot of times. I was having just a terrible time this third lap, and it's bad because by that third lap, you know, like, you know the track, and you shouldn't really be struggling that much. I mean, you can ride slower, but you shouldn't be hitting unexpected turns. You should at that point have the track memorized, and I just didn't. I wasn't paying attention enough my first or second lap, and that was my own fault. The way this works is it was sort of their Halloween special, so all of the like the track sweepers, they're known as, basically they go to the woods and they make sure no kids are crashed. They help keep track of all the riders, just because this is a 5-mile track, right? This isn't like, yeah, basically the track sweepers are to make sure across this 5-mile track there aren't kids, you know, dying literally on the side of the road. Since it was Halloween, they were actually all dressed up, and now the one that was following me, I forget, I know there was a little inside joke with some of the track sweepers, and some of them were dressed up like bananas, and some of them were actually dressed up like gorillas, and the one that ended up helping me after I crashed was dressed up like a gorilla, and that's probably the funniest thing ever. So basically, he's right behind me, you know, because I was riding really slow. So he's following right behind me, and I come around this corner, and I'm realizing quickly, like, I'm performing terribly. I'm like, if I want to even have a chance at, you know, even finishing, really, because if you don't finish in enough time, they just boot you off the track, as you would expect. And I'm thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get booted. I at least want to finish the race, even if I'm in literal dead last. I'm like, I just need to finish. And I realized that coming around a corner, so I come around this corner and I just grip it, and I absolutely rip it. I keep it pinned first through second through third. I'm in third gear pinned, probably doing 30 to 40 miles an hour, like absolutely flying. And I came out of the corner, you know, I'm booking it, I'm ripping, and I hit about third gear tapped, and all of a sudden, I don't know what happens. Maybe I forget to turn, I'm not sure what goes through my head, but all of a sudden I hit a tree doing probably 35 or 40 miles an hour. I get launched forward, literally upside down through the air, and then I whack my head on a log. And of course, I'm wearing a helmet. I'm not gonna ride without a helmet ever in my life. You guys will catch me dead doing that. You know, some people will call you, you know, whatever for not wearing, for wearing a helmet, but you are actually the biggest idiot ever if you ride without a helmet. So just know that. So I hit this tree with like the might of Zeus, and now it was about my front fender. It was like the direct center of the bike. Front of the bike collides, front fender. I remember seeing my front fender shatter as I fly through the air. I hit the log with my head and I black out for a few seconds, I get back up, and the trail sweeper, he's like, dude, you gotta chill for a second. Like, I just saw you crash like 3 times in a row. Like I said, guys, I literally just kept crashing. It was terrible. It was the worst lap of my life. So he's like, dude, you gotta chill out. Like, you just nailed that shit. He's like, are you okay? Because I got right back up, and I was in pain, and I actually, looking at my bike shattered on the ground, leaking coolant and oil, it was bad. It like really sucked, and I was like, I just spent, you know, a couple $100 to make it to this race just for my bike to shatter on the ground, you know. And like, obviously I'm not gonna finish the race. Like, the bike's totaled, and I was like, it sucks, like, this is terrible. And he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, the bike's not. And he's like, yeah, this thing ain't finishing the race. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And he was like, we have to still ride it back. Obviously I'm still like 5 miles in the woods, and there's a little access road that led right back to the pit, and it was about a ½ mile down the trail, and then you hit this access road. So we hit this little access road, and I'm riding back, and my dad says, you know, since obviously I crashed, I sat down for probably a good 5 minutes. I was just like kind of taking a breather here, and my dad says, we didn't know where you were, like all your other laps are pretty good, and then you just never showed up after this one. And he said, I saw someone coming up on a bike, no front fender, mutilated bike, bars are crooked, with a trail sweeper with an armful of bike parts behind him. And he's like, oh, I didn't think it would be you, and then it was you. And we got the bike back. I split the case wide open, literally split the engine in half. I blew out one of my radiators and a whole bunch of other stuff. It was leaking coolant, oil, the front fender was shattered, one of the radiator shrouds was shattered. What else? The whole the handlebars were tweaked, the front entire triple tree was tweaked. The bike was like absolutely destroyed. It was the worst crash I've ever had on a dirt bike. Worst crash I've had on any bike ever, actually. And I have crashed bikes pretty hard before. One time I smacked a tree, and that sucked. But yeah, basically I get back, the bike's destroyed, and I was so wildly upset at how destroyed the bike was. I was just pissed off, and I was like, you know, this is literally worst case scenario. In reality, I should have been happy that I walked away without any llamas, alpacas, baby alpacas. What? Oh, that's so cool. I really should just be happy that I walked away without major injuries. I actually never even went to the hospital, but I definitely had a concussion, that's for sure. I have no doubts in my mind about that. So I should be happy. And anytime you guys crash a bike, you know, it's always like a common joke, you know, you're in the hospital, doctor, any questions? Yeah, how's my bike? It's like, no, that was actually how I was. I was more concerned over the health of my bike than over the health of myself, when I shouldn't have been. So yeah, that's basically the story of the worst crash ever. It cost a couple $100 to get the bike back up and running, and this sucked, you know, but I hopefully will be racing that track again in 2021. And I actually raced the track one time after that, and I remember because I went and I found that tree before the race started, not after the race. Before the race started, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fun, you know, this track is sort of my enemy. But yeah, so after the race I went back and I saw the tree, and this is a year later, like a year to the day later, and there was actually a big gouge in the tree, and there were still little chunks of blue plastic on the ground from that poor Yamaha. Now that was the worst crash of my life. If you guys have a terrible crash, go ahead and comment down below. I want to hear all about it, because I want to feel like I'm not alone here. That was probably the worst race of my life. So if you guys have any crashes similar to that, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. If you guys liked this video, be sure to smash the crap out of that like button, guys. Helps the algorithm, helps get my videos out there in the broad public's view, and I know more people would like, so be sure to hit that like button. Comment down below as well for the algorithm. They love when you guys interact with my videos, and I love when you guys interact with my videos. It's cool to talk to you guys and talk to the people who watch my content. If you want to see more like this, be sure to subscribe with that notification bell on. I upload Monday through Friday. Oh, I'm in Massachusetts. Okay. I upload Monday through Friday all at 3 p.m. Eastern. But like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.